Welcome back, everybody, to yet another show here on the O'Shea Duke Jackson main channel. I am your host, O'Shea Duke Jackson. For those of you who were in the live stream waiting for it to start, I definitely appreciate you. For those of you who will be watching the restream, I definitely thank you for being here. Today, I have a good YouTube buddy of mine is really taking off in the last few months here on YouTube. We did a show with him, and he appeared on one of my earlier Sunday Rumble shows. And I did a show yesterday on my O'Shea Vlogcast channel with the one and only Anthony Brian Logan and Mikenificent. When we were talking about particular blacks who may not sound, quote unquote, or be the stereotypical kind of black person, the pressures that they have under him, I use Mikenificent as an example and Donovan Sharp of what I was discussing. I did not know that Mikenificent was actually going to be listening to the stream as he was working. So immediately when he heard it, I got an email and he said, I want to come on your show and clear it up. If you don't put me on your show, I'm going live anyway. So you might as well put me on there. So, you know, when Mikenificent talks, I listen. So I want to present a very strong YouTuber. I think he's doing really well. He's doing very good. He's got more subscribers than I got when I first started. The one and only Mikenificent YouTube channel. What's going on, Mikenificent?
What's up, O'Shea, man? Appreciate the warm introduction. I'm glad to be back on your channel, man, because it's been a couple months. It's been since what, like August was the first time that we ever collaborated. And then we did we did the Rumble show, back in like April or May, and I was really new. And then we did that one-on-one live stream, and then I've been a big fan of your work ever since, man. So thanks for having me on the channel.
No problem. Back then you had like less than 700 subscribers. Lo and behold, you got 11,000. Man, I might have to be on your channel pretty soon, man, because you over there, your views are going up and everything. So glad that you come on. Mike, let me ask you a question. I always ask a person when they come on to the show now, what made you come on to YouTube and what made you start creating the content from your position?
Well, I had been subscribed. I've been fully engaged in YouTube content for like probably a year. I would be watching like Brandon Tatum, ABL. I just was like discovering all different types of black conservatives and just conservatives in general. And everything that I heard just made so much sense to me. But then when I would turn on like mainstream media or go back out into like liberal world, which is pretty much outside of YouTube, that's where you hear all the liberal talking points. I just would hear so many like lies and contradictions and, a lot of smearing, especially as it relates to like Trump and Trump supporters. And I just thought like there are not enough people using their voice to kind of blow up these narratives. And, I'm a natural speaker. I'm very opinionated. I'm outspoken. I have no problem stating my case. And I just thought like I might as well try it out, especially with being so inspired by seeing the black conservatives. Black conservatives on YouTube have inspired me so much. And I've learned a new way of thinking based on, the black experience in America. Like it doesn't have to always be the way that I've seen it growing up. And so I'm like, I'm gonna use my voice in that way too, because I want to be a part of this movement. I just felt like I was becoming a part of something greater than myself. I can't hear you now. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
White man was holding me back, brother. That's what it was. He held me back. I see Zach Hing in the comment section there. Shout out to Zach. I really, really love Zach. It's a shame he moved to Arizona, and I probably won't be able to see him when I come back to California. But good to see Zach there. Let me ask you this, Mike. You are what I've seen in the last 2 years on YouTube. This wave of bright young African Americans who have publicized their support for conservative ideologies and in a way have come out. I'm not saying be pejorative towards the African American community, but you're stating your opinion of Black America from people's eyes in a different tone that most of Black America is not used to. So let me talk about this. We talked about that a little bit last time. How did you grow up? Where did you grow up, and how did you see the Black community as you were coming up as a young man?
Well, I grew up in Colorado, Denver area, and I would say that for me, it was more about my family upbringing and just kind of my life experience told me that I'm good in a world where I'm being told that I should be a victim or my skin color means something. I was being told that, yet my actual experience was quite the opposite. Like I didn't really feel like because I'm black I can't do something or because I'm black I got to think this way. But I was being told that, and for a while I just kind of let it roll off my back like it's whatever. But the older I got, when I started to develop my own opinions and I
Mhm.
had like well-rounded values, like those started to kind of set in, I would hear like still like, nope, blacks got to be Democrat. And I would say in 2016, right around then, well, really a little bit before that with Obama's second term, I was really more critical of that second term. And I started to wake up and say, like, wait a minute, things aren't really improving like I thought they would be.
Mhm.
And I'm open to, now that he's not going to be president anymore, what does it mean if a Republican's president? And, I wasn't even a Trump supporter at the beginning of 2016. I was a Rand Paul guy. I really liked what Rand Paul had to say, and I knew about his dad, Ron Paul. So I heard, the libertarian point of view on like how the government should be run, and I was really in alignment with that. I'm like, wow, that allows for the most amount of freedom and yada yada yada. So I have no problem kind of speaking to that because that allows freedom for everyone. Like it's not tailored towards anyone else. It's just kind of like totally unregulated free market. And so I have no problem really speaking to that. I think with Trump and everything else, it's kind of more controversial. It's libertarian. I don't think it's controversial the way traditional Republican, and Donald Trump would be controversial. And so I would say like just going back to like my family, we've always been independent. My mom, she was a teen mom and she was independent. She went out and worked. She didn't get on welfare or anything like that. And with the rest of my family, we're all independent. Like we all grew up in Colorado, but for the most part, we moved out, went somewhere else in the country and like put down roots and started lives there. And so that's just kind of the nature of my family. And then with my personal experience and just the way that I view the world as an individual, I just don't see a problem with speaking in a way that most people wouldn't, I guess, approve of, or it's just kind of is what it is, if that makes sense.
Like, let me talk to you about this. I was making the case that, well, actually, Anthony Bryan Logan brought it up first. Anthony Bryan Logan said that a lot of he brought up black success guilt, and that successful blacks have this extreme pressure to basically bail out or give excuses for underperforming blacks. And then we also talked about other blacks who are not necessarily stereotypically fitting in, don't use the slang or have the same kind of, quote unquote African American Negro charisma. Like, and they may, have it may have a talking tone such as yourself, which it doesn't like. It's not a stereotypical black voice that you under intense pressure to either become more pro-black to prove your blackness because you already don't sound like the stereotypical, what a black person's supposed to sound like, or you're gonna have to defect and go into the dominant society to be accepted. Do you feel, because the way you grew up and the way that you talk and being from Colorado, that in order to be in the black community, you would have to pretty much have success guilt for the underperforming blacks, or to feel sorry for other blacks just to be accepted and to be wanted in the community?
Uh, well, let me start with this, okay? I can't help where I grew up, and I wouldn't help it if I could. Where I grew up is where I grew up. And also, I don't appreciate when people try to like shame or belittle or try to deflect my situation or my life experience because of the way I grew up. Like, see, I don't understand this with the black community. This is a problem that I have with tribalism in general. and this is where I started to branch off and see myself as an individual, is when I was growing up and hearing stuff like, oh, white people do this, or only Asian people do that, or something. I'm like, but what about what I want to do? Like, why do I have to be shackled to a set of beliefs and ideas based on my skin color, which is another thing I can't control? So instead of me kind of being bullied into a situation where I have to pick a side, I'm just going to stand alone as an individual. And that's what I advocate for, is individual free thinking, self-governance, sovereign individual, because of reasons like that, where people say, like, you have to have some certain talking points to be considered black. And it's like, all black people have to be considered down with the struggle. I would have had to grow up in like Southside Chicago or East Oakland. Like, the whole point of it is my experience matters. I think my experience is incredibly important because it's the antithesis of what it means to truly be black in America, which, by the way, who gets to define what that is anyway? See, I rail against status quo ideology and groupthink. It's so controlling and limiting. And naturally, I feel like humans, we have a tendency to go with the herd, but in our mind, we might disagree with the herd, but we don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to rock the boat. Well, I'm happy to rock the boat now. For a while, I didn't rock the boat. I just kind of sat in there and took it like, I don't really agree with this, but I'm not going to say anything. And now I'm saying something about it, and it just ruffles so many feathers because my experience highlights the point that your upbringing and your environment matters to your success, to how you see the world, to what your descendants' experience is going to be. For example, yeah, I grew up in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado. Why, do you ask? Because my grandparents, my father's parents, moved from Oklahoma. They had like farmland and stuff down there. They moved to Denver like early in the 20th century, like early night. They died when I was like 11. They had my dad when they were in their later years. So anyway, they moved to Denver at a time when it was really not common for blacks to have money and be able to live in the neighborhood that they lived in. They were the first black family in their neighborhood. Why did they do that? Because they wanted to give my dad and me and whoever else, because that we still have that house, a better life. So they made decisions based on what they thought would be best, for their kids, and vice versa, or not vice versa, but like my dad kept the house after they passed away, and I'll inherit that house. And so because of that structure growing up, with me having two parents in the home, encyclopedias in the home, being in a nice school district, talking white, whatever that means. Okay. Because when you say talking white, I don't mean you, but when people say you talk white, what they really mean is you're articulate, you're well-spoken, you enunciate your words. Okay. Why is that a bad thing? Why is that a white thing? Shouldn't that be an everybody thing? I get the whole, we talk like this and we, whatever. I'm not going to try to imitate it. That doesn't mean, if someone talks that way, that doesn't mean that they are, if someone talks like a white person, that doesn't mean that they're not black. It's like this. What if I grew up in the UK and then I moved to the United States as a black person? If I had a British accent, are they going to say the same thing? That's kind of, it's really petty. It's kind of childish, but it's also low-hanging fruit. I expect it. It's not, they're not, the people that say that stuff now, they're not the first ones to say it. It's very much like, I like intellectual responses. And when someone says something like, oh, you talk white, you're not black because you like to do this, or you grew up in Denver. I'm like, well, if you're going to blame anybody about it, you got to blame my grandparents for wanting a better life and moving us to a neighborhood that was mostly white, but is because the economic opportunities and school district and et cetera, et cetera. Would I then try to go back and say, well, I need to start talking this way. Maybe I should sound a little more like Snoop Dogg, talking ghetto, whatever it is that it means to sound black. I see it as, it's kind of petty to try to cast someone out based on things that were outside of their control, but then also something that like really doesn't make any sense to begin with.
Let me talk to you about, and shout out to Carl's opinion. Hey, O'Shea and Mike. And by the way, to subscribe to Mikenificent, all that you need to do is to go into the description. Do me a favor and like the video if you can. I appreciate it. Like the video here. Mike, let me also talk to you about this. You mentioned that you were quiet at first about certain things that you didn't agree with, and you just said, "Well, I kind of don't agree with it, but I kind of, shut my mouth a little bit about it." And then at some point, you started speaking on these issues. What triggered the change? What triggered you from being quiet to actually being more outspoken about it?
Well, I would say as I became more politically engaged, I was politically agnostic. Like growing up, I wasn't into politics. Both of my parents are moderate. I grew up in a more moderate, conservative leaning home, and I didn't even think about it that way. I didn't even realize that I've been like a lifelong conservative until recently when I'm like thinking of like how other conservatives grew up. And I'm like, wait, my upbringing was like that too. Like my parents didn't talk about like victimhood stats. Like we were always like, you work, you don't work, you don't eat. Pretty much. I had a job by the time I was 16. I had my driver's license and I was doing my thing early on. And once I got older and started looking into politics, that's when I'm like, wait a minute. So that's kind of how that's like how Democrats look at the world and look at, politics, and then Republicans same way. But what made me want to speak out was with this election of Donald Trump, the amount of division that was already in the country, by the way. I'm not going to say that Trump is the reason for all the division, but the division in the country reached a peak once he got elected. And I saw the way that they were saying, oh, all the white people that support Trump are racist. And, anybody that supports Trump that's black, you're a sellout, your Uncle Tom. I just feel like it reached a fever pitch. Mm-hmm. And there weren't enough people speaking out against it. You have channels like Anthony Brian Logan that are growing and have gotten big, but I just felt like there needed to be other people in the fight. And so I wanted to speak out and be unapologetic about it because I have friends, white friends, that voted for Obama, but then they also voted for Trump. And they're being told that they're racist and they hate black people and they're sexist and all of these smear tactics that have been put on by the left. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is wrong. Something is really, really wrong here. And I'm going to speak out against it because I see the tricks of it, that they want us to hate each other and be divided. I mean, look at the double standards also. There is so many reasons why I decided to speak out and use my voice. And I mean, it's been great because obviously my message has grown and it's reached a lot of people. But I would say that just with the way that they want us to be divided, specifically along racial lines and how it is a business, like there's vested interests in stock in keeping blacks and whites hating each other and divided. And so, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
Mike, let me do this. Now I'm going to shout out the super chat here from the sister. But Mike, let me talk to you about this. You have a different, and this is probably where some people might, in the black community, might have a problem with. You are a large scale ABL, and this is kind of where I I do get off the boat here with you in this regard, is that you are a conservative, black conservative that wants a more integrated world, a more integrated society. And I think that's probably where a lot of people who are in the pro-black community are kind of like, wait a minute. What do you mean? That's how we got in this position in the first place. We don't control anything that we own. We've lost a lot of our identity by doing this. You're for a more integrated America, more integrated, blacks kind of being more American first and not necessarily being black American first. What has brought you to this kind of realization?
Tribalism, man. Like going back to when I said I was a kid, and I would hear stuff like, oh, white people do this, black people do that. I'm like, what do individuals want to do? I'm an individual first. Mm-hmm. And this is my problem. This is where I get off the boat with the pro-black, because it's like, what is the end game? what do you want? Do you want a black ethno state in the United States of America devoid of all white people? If so, who's going to lead the charge? How are you going to get all the black people together? When is it going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want it sectioned off and if you want to just kind of compartmentalize by race, then racism is going to live. America's already integrated. We're the most racially diverse country on the planet. We're the least racist country on earth. This is the most economically prosperous country, the most medically advanced country. We are so blessed to be in this country. And you have people here, primarily the pro-blacks, that are talking about racism all the time and all of these, like, at this point, stale grievances. Like, racism is a stale grievance. All right, we just got to call it what it is. All of these, like, white privilege, white supremacy, they put that like at the center of the universe, and like, all right, we need to focus on that. We need to focus on black community first. And I'm like, why don't you focus on individual first? Because you know what? Because I think of myself as an individual first. I'm going to make decisions based on my analysis, my worldview. Are my kids going to be better off or worse off because of the way I think? So, for example, if I only saw myself as a victim, if I saw, like, you know what, this is a white man's world, I can't own anything because I'm black. If I only looked at the lack aspect, like if I had a lack mindset, then what does that do for my kids? Wouldn't that just transfer to them? Wouldn't I just sit down and be like, hey, look, son, you're black, so you got to act like this with the police. You're a black person first. I mean, that message, come on, man, that message sucks. I'm just going to be honest. That is a horrible message to give to your kids, or to really give to anybody, because there's no hope in the message that your skin color is what matters, when in reality, you're a divine individual. And that is how you have your own thoughts. You're going to, no matter who you are, you're going to pay taxes and die. And Father Time is undefeated. So nobody's getting out of here alive. So I don't want to hear anything about white supremacy and all that. If whites are superior, first of all, that can't happen without everyone else agreeing, like, yes, you're superior. Someone could come to me right now and tell me, hey, I'm white, I'm superior. I'm like, okay, go get hit by that bus right there and come back, walk back to me. Get stung by a bee and not feel any pain. Like, live forever. Do something that makes you immune, because that is the only way. Otherwise, I don't see myself as inferior to you. I'm not going to acknowledge that. The thing is like, these are all socially constructed, man-made ideas that we're all living in this, like, matrix. These, all right, black community, white community, Asian community, Hispanic community. It's like, we're freely moving about this planet. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, and it's extremely shallow to just limit to yourself to interacting with people based on skin color alone. Like, skin color alone, we can disagree on politics, disagree on things. We may have nothing else in common, but we share black skin. Therefore, we need to collaborate, work together. I'm like, I gravitate towards like-minded individuals. And I don't care if they're women, men, tall, short, fat, doesn't matter. Gay, straight, doesn't matter. If you're a like-minded individual, we can vibe. Otherwise, it just feels limiting to just view the world based on your skin color. It's just a shell. We're all humans. I just don't see a reason to continue on with this, like, racial divide. So if like and then I'll move on, because I know how you are about these long-winded Negroes.
No. You give me a lot to work with, for sure.
Yeah. I just, the pro-blacks have never given me, I've never heard, like, what the end game is. Are we going back to, like, tribal African stuff? Like, what's going to happen? Are we moving to Africa? How are you going to create this utopian society for blacks only in the United States of America? Like, are you not American? What if you're not American? What are you? Are you going to spend your 15 minutes on planet Earth? Because, like I said, nobody's getting out of here alive. So do you want to spend your 15 minutes on planet Earth worried about the white man and how can we recapture sacred African stuff? Like, what's your goal? I know what my goal is. My goal is to transcend all the bullshit of this prison we're living in, live my best life, share positivity, love, light, leave the world in a better place than I found it. And that's with me using my brain. That's not me subscribing to some groupthink or some tribal identity that has nothing to do with my mind. It has everything to do with my skin color. So
let me ask you this: do you think
yeah.
that like someone who feels like you do, because it seems like to me like you're, and I said this before, you're black conservative, but you're black and you're conservative, but it's unfair to probably call you a black conservative, because y- you're more for integrated America. So should the black community have somebody like Mikenificent? Because you really what Republicans are looking for right now, let's be honest, Republicans are looking for black people to represent the black community, to win the black community over. This is what I think that, what's that company that that Brandon Tatum was working with? It's called
Turning Point.
Turning Point
Turning
USA.
Point USA.
Yeah. Is it fair? Because I think that what the right is looking for is for young blacks, African Americans who are black, to kind of represent the black community. It seems like to me you speaking for yourself as an individual. Does the black community need somebody like Mikenificent to help get other blacks off the plantation? And do you get what I'm saying? Like, do you think more blacks should be thinking more like you?
I don't see. We're going back to skin color again, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the black community? What does that mean? Does it mean we're all connected because of our skin color?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Who's all in the black community? Is it every black person in America? Does it include black people who moved here from Canada and from Africa and from Europe? Are they part
Let's
of
call it
the black
the
community?
African Americans. Just those are the descendants of slaves.
Okay. All right. So the other thing that you said that I'm for an integrated America.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that everyone else is for a segregated America? Because if that's the case, I have a problem with that.
Okay, let me say this. I mean, you're more for being American first and race second. Like, so in other words, I would think like, because there are people who are African American descendants of slaves, that feel that our group has been treated much differently historically than other groups in this country, and so therefore, because let's be honest, the Jewish groups, they think, they don't. I don't think they have your mindset. The Asian community, they don't have your mindset. The let's just transcend race. The gay community, they don't think as individuals. They do things as a kind of a group think first, and they kind of dominate industries where the Jews do it, definitely Asians do it. But it looks like your attitude is much different than that. And when it comes to African Americans, it seems like you're implying that, okay, African Americans should be worried about not necessarily being just black or anything like that, or working as more as a group to get things done for them. They should be more worried about being individuals and being good American citizens. That's what I think you're saying. I'm not sure.
No, and actually, I got to call out a couple things that you said that I disagree with.
Okay.
You said that the Asians don't think that way. So you just made a blanket statement. You spoke on behalf of all Asians and all gays and all Jewish people.
Well, okay, I'll say not all, but certainly when you look at them as a group.
I don't look at anyone as a group, though. I look at every.
You might not look at people as a group, but when you look at certain people, they perform like Jewish people. They have higher incomes. There's a reason why certain groups do certain things better than in comparison to other groups. Or like when you look at businesses per group, Asians have more businesses. They have certain things. They have more education than, let's say, blacks or even whites. So I mean, I know that you may not look at people as groups, but the census looks at people as groups.
Well, if we were to pull a sample size of Asians, of Jewish, of white, and let's say of blacks who are all successful, right? Let's say that they got money, they're running businesses, they got Mercedes, they live out in the burbs, their kids are in college. Let's say we took a little subset of all those races and polled them, asked them questions like, how did you become successful? Like, what's the secret sauce in your family's success? I'm willing to bet that every single one of them is going to say it has to do with family values, both parents being there in the home, and just a cultural upbringing within that family unit, that structured nuclear family unit, is what led to their success. Not because, well, we're Chinese and Chinese people do this, so all Chinese people think this way, and that's how we came up. Mm-hmm. Or all Jewish people think this way, that's why we came up. It has to do with it drills down to the individual level. Choosing the right partner, mm-hmm. waiting till you're married to have kids, finishing high school, getting a job, setting money aside for your kids to go to school so they're not taking out student loans, mm-hmm. and creating a future for your descendants. Going back to my grandparents again, moving mm-hmm. to Colorado from Oklahoma. We still have land in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. There's a house in a very nice neighborhood in Aurora in a nice school district where I grew up. That's going to get passed down to me, which I'll raise my kids. My kids will have that. So that is what is more, what's the word I'm looking for? That is where it starts from. It starts from that individual level and that cultural upbringing, or that, I don't even want to say cultural because then you could link it back. Well, it's skin color. It's not skin color, because if it were skin color, then how would you explain Nigerians coming over here making money, or people from India, people coming from impoverished places where they have nothing, and they come over here in America and they will take off like that? You know, there are some aspects to it, definitely, as it relates to culture, mm-hmm. specifically in the Black community. And this is where a lot of pro-Blacks will kind of gloss over and not talk about. We got to talk about how people like T.I. and Jay-Z are seen as role models and leaders, but Ben Carson gets called a porch monkey on TV. How is it that Black people who think differently, or have conservative values, they get smeared as Uncle Toms, Coons, Sambos, all these non-intellectual smears to try to undermine someone who wants to think differently and create a life for themselves, as opposed to submitting to groupthink and tribalism? We got to talk about that. Like Jay-Z with his little most recent diss of Kanye, talking about he's what did he call him, a house nigga and whatever. But it's like, Jay-Z sold crack to Black people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's successful now, but like, why is Jay-Z getting more clout than someone who just says, think for yourself, dare to be different? How is that controversial? So there are cultural aspects that I believe, because of that deeply rooted tribal identity, that people don't break away from. Me, I break away from that. I'm like, you mean to tell me, oh, okay, because I'm Black, I have to think and agree with all of these things. Otherwise, I'm going to get called out all these names. Like, I'll share what they say about like how I talk. I'm like, okay, so you're going to just choose to attack me instead of attack the message, mm-hmm. right? That's my thing. I would love to have civil discourse with someone who disagrees, without ad hominem attacks, without insults, without all of the vitriol, mm-hmm. because I know it ruffles feathers and it's good. I'm glad. So to answer your question, yes, the Black community and all communities need a Mikenificent, and it has nothing to do with my skin color. It has everything to do with my God-given brain and the message that I deliver. How could anyone disagree with being an individual first? Not an American first, not a Black conservative first, an individual first. The world is full of individuals pursuing their own self-interest. That is a fact.
Mike, let me say some things. I mean, I don't disagree with some of the things, but in comparisons to, well, you make a case about Nigerians. Why do these people come to America and they do better? Well, it's almost certain for the fact that people, when they come over to America, not all the time, but usually America takes like the best and brightest people from other places, unless they get the green card. And these people come in with, intact families. They come in with some level of already, great skill. So yeah, they're going to outperform, Blacks. They're being handpicked. The same things from people that are from Europe or places like that. Like if you take the best Blacks and you from Africa, for Black America or America, and you put them, you take them to England, they're going to outperform everybody else. So I think that's the thing. So when we compare those people haven't had a history of evil done to them as African Americans have in America. So I get where you're trying to say, but the way that African Americans have been treated, and the way that some people haven't been experiencing this like from generation to generation to generation, it's very different. Black people are fucked up. Yeah, they've done it themselves too, but they damn sure had some help from white people at the same time. So we cannot acknowledge that. Now, your family, for example, your family seems to have not had as many problems. That is true, and I mean, you see Black America from different lenses that many of us have never seen it. Unfortunately, though, a lot of Blacks have fallen into traps that the system has set for them, in things of like like that. So I think that we do have a lot of individual groupthink in America right now, because I was talking to George, and the biggest boycott in Black history has been Black people boycotting against each other. I think we do have a lot of Black people thinking for the individual. And because of that, we don't have Black businesses. Because of that, we don't have a lot of things. If you look at, let's say, Jewish, or we won't use the Jewish group, we'll just look at some of them. Well, there's like articles that talk about how much the Jewish money circulates within their community before it leaves out. I think it's like it goes like before it goes out to the community, it's like there for like 13 or 14 days. And the Black community is there for like 6 hours. So when you can't monetize your own businesses, when you don't have things that you can support as a community to help your community grow, well, that is individual groupthink. Unfortunately, when we think like that, it benefits other people, but it doesn't benefit us. So I think what you're saying is what Blacks have been doing for the last 50 years. I don't know where that's gotten us.
Well, when you talk about like money circulating in the community and owning our own businesses and stuff like that, I think we're going to see that change as the years go by. For example, my nephew's growing up in the internet age, the information age, where they have MacBook Pros. I have a nephew that's like extremely talented. He makes beats and sells them. He's already got like 2 or 3 jobs. He's like got his little hustle on, and he's only like 19. So imagine him once he's older and has kids, and how many other kids are like him, young, intelligent, talented, skilled, figured out a way to make money without going to someone else, being an individual, an entrepreneur, thinking like, man, how can I make my own money so I don't have to survive based on someone else giving me a paycheck? Because then you're at the mercy of someone else. That's why I disagree with the whole like minimum wage hike and all that. It's like, if you're working at a minimum wage job and that's not enough to get to, pay your bills, get a second job, do Uber and Lyft, do Airbnb, rent out a second bedroom, get off your ass and hustle. That's what it takes to be successful. Instead of trying to succeed based on collaboration with someone else, make it happen on your own. Now, if you find like-minded people who are driven and ambitious that want to work with you, then that's fine. That's different. But like, I just don't see how everybody can lift themselves up together. Like, we got to get together and then lift ourselves up. It's like a rich person that's Black is going to raise wealthy Black kids who will have wealthy Black kids because they're going to the best schools. So you have to focus on what you can control. And I can't control the whole Black community. I can't control the whole white community. I can't control any community. Call it whatever you want. I can't control other people. I can't control the decisions they make. I can't control what they think of me. I can't control if they want to give me a job or not. But I can control my ability to make money, how I'm going to respond to the stimuli in front of me, whether it's racism, whether it's someone cutting me off in traffic. It doesn't matter what it is in my life. Haven't you heard that saying? It's probably a bumper sticker. I don't know. Life is 5% of what happens and 95% of how you respond.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so accurate. And then also you got to figure law of attraction. This is where I know it turns a lot of people off because it sounds like weird, but it's literally spiritual. It's like, don't be governed by the rules of the world. Be governed by the laws of the universe. If you think you can do something, guess what? You can do it and you will do it. But if you think you can't, you're also right. And if you literally think in your brain, my life is not going to be the way I want it to be because some white entity or something that's invisible out in the ether will at some point stop me, then guess what? That's going to be your experience. What you focus on expands, and what you think about, you bring about. That is a message that everybody, regardless of what community you're from, or regardless of what happened in the past, if you can't get on board with that, then you're going to be your life is going to be just that. You're going to have a problem because it starts in your mind. You have to decide that you're going to choose the world you live in rather than the world choosing the way that you're going to live. And that's why I think I trigger so many people, because I'm not going to let this world define me. I'm not going to be bullied into, I'm not going to bend the knee and like submit to something else and say like, okay, all right, well, white people are doing this or black people are doing that. It all comes back to the individual. No matter how you spin it, no matter how many different angles we look at it from, it comes down to being an individual, making decisions for yourself. Like having books in your house for your kids. When we talk about the black community and how like we're behind, other ethnic groups. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a subset. That's data for to say like black people have had, disparities over the years. It's like, okay, what can you do about it right now? If you're a single mom living in Chicago, you got 4 kids, the government, maybe you're on welfare, whatever, you hate it, you don't like it. What can you do about it? Is there anything that you can do to improve your own life, as opposed to what we need is the right Democrat in office. If we just get the right Democrat, everything will fix, and then I'll be good. Or can you decide, you know what, I'm going to go to the thrift store and get a set of encyclopedias and have my kids start reading. So when they go to school next semester or whatever, they're going to be ahead. They're going to be ready. Like, we have to do a better job in the home before we can talk about all these other things, because you have to get it right from the beginning. Because from the time a kid is born, the time we're born, our parents have the most influence over us, right? At least it should be that way. Now it's kind of like the school, public education has more influence and culture has more influence. But like, it starts in the home and being stricter in the home and like changing some of the rhetoric and talk track, pivoting away from talking about slavery and Jim Crow, because none of us lived through that. Okay. It's a fact. None of us lived through it. We got to pivot towards solutions. I am solution oriented. So no matter what we talk about as it relates to the past, we have to pivot towards solutions.
Let me do this. 272 people watching. Let me do this. And guys, also, Mike, I won't have you on to keep you too long. We're 42 minutes in. The Thirst Box episode is appearing in 20 minutes. It will be premiering. So I'll have Mike on for another 15 minutes and we'll all go over there. So let me shout out some super chats. And don't forget to subscribe to Mikenificent, and really good YouTuber. Let me just read some of these super chats. A real engineer. Thank you, brother, for our super chat. Arraign Knights. I'm a conservative, but I do know my enemy, black and white. Carl's opinion. I'm Italian German. Yeah, Carl's he be donating like crazy, man. He be donating more than some of the brothers, man. Other than food, I have no Italian or German identity, just American. Carl. Okay, we'll deal with what Carl's saying. D West. He needs to tell whites to diversify where they spend their money. Integration doesn't work when the dominant culture doesn't spend money with us. T West again. Damn, D West look good. Y'all see her? Man, she is fine as fuck. Sorry, I'm having a thirsty moment. Teach blacks to embrace their privilege. Yeah, look at her, Mike. She look good as hell. Teaching bright blacks that they are statistics is the worst. Never try to relate underprivileged blacks. Okay, let me ask you this, Mike, because even what we're doing right now, we're 2 black African American YouTubers. We collaborate. Anthony Brian Logan. We collaborate all the time. I go support his channel. He helps me make money on my channel, vice versa. That's kind of a evidence of like this kind of little black community online economy that we have right now. That's helping the community, even though it's not necessarily physical. But let me ask you this, and I'm not trying to take a shot at you or anything, Mike. If you've ever been in like an interracial relationship before, most black men have. Do you get, when you walk past someone you have an attractive, let's say non-black girlfriend. Let's say she's white. Even in Colorado, do you feel like you get dirty looks from white people? When you have if you've had a white mate before, because it seems like racism is something that we shouldn't be worried about. But has this ever happened to you where you feel like, damn, people are looking at me dirty? I feel a little bit out of place. I mean, has that ever happened to you before? Or?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the short answer is yeah. I mean, it has happened, but it's not something that I carry with me. It's kind of one of those things like, okay, so you're a bigot, fine, but it's not limited to just white people. We got to be honest.
Sure,
because
okay.
You know, I've been in the South and seen how blacks will look at it, and it's been mostly in the South where I live now. Blacks will actually look at it a lot more openly. Like you can openly see like the disgust or the disapproval of it. But it's like it exposes like bigotry and intolerance. And it's like, okay, so you're against interracial relationships, but Obama's your favorite president.
Mm-hmm.
Obama's the best president ever, but I don't agree with interracial relationships. It's kind of like, again, it goes back to limiting yourself based on putting on those colored sunglasses and looking at the world as a black person first or a white person first. And I think it doesn't represent a culture. It represents that person, because there are plenty of other people who are totally fine with it. They don't say anything about it. Because I mean, if you look at an interracial couple with you look down at them, then you probably do the same thing when you see a gay couple too. So didn't that just kind of make you a bigot? But then you would want to turn around and say it's racism if someone looked at you for a certain way. So it's kind of like a double standard when people do that.
I think my point is, and me living in Poland is, what you're saying is like we have the individual mindset, but I think maybe what was missing in this conversation is people still group you according to your phenotype. Because like I know you're a good citizen, you'll never go to jail or anything like that. But even when in extreme circumstances, when you go to jail for people's safety, they group people according to race. Like the blacks hang out with the blacks, the whites hang out with the whites. I mean, and that's even in certain situations. And it's crazy because we do live in an integrated world. Well, why do in almost every jail they group people for the most part by race?
Probably because of gangs. I mean, I don't know. I would have to look into some more. I would have to look into more information on that. I mean,
well, what I'm saying is this: people at the end of the day, even though the world is getting more modern, and just like you said before, I think you said there were things that you didn't agree with, but you didn't say much about it. I think that really people are going to have pejorative stereotypes about blacks. My take is black people are never going to be accepted as equals in America. It's never going to happen. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that that's a thing that black people should just learn to accept and just kind of deal with it and start trying to work together and help each other out. White people, on average, have really no use for black people, and are never going to see them on the same playing field. I don't know why people think it's going to happen, but it's never going to happen. It's never happened before. It didn't happen 100 years ago. Wasn't the case 20 years ago. Wasn't the case 10 years ago. Ain't the case now. Black people and white people, we're not on the same level. That's how they always viewed us. That's how it's always been. But I think here's the thing. I think we should just be. It's okay. It's not a problem. I think the issue is, I think a lot of blacks are trying to wash away how other people view blacks and try to say, well, they don't really view us like that. That is how they view people. That's just, I've been all over the world. That's the case for the most part. But what I'm saying is, if that is the case, then that should go why we should treat each other better as African Americans and try to help each other. Because one thing for sure, white folks ain't gonna help us, Asians ain't gonna help us, nobody else is gonna bail us out. So that's just my position. I mean, that's how I see it. I've been in every continent. That's how I see it.
Fair enough. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In the black community, we do need to treat each other better because truth be told, like if I were walking through Chicago right now, Southside Chicago, that's a lot more of a dangerous place than I mean, you got to be honest and call shit what it is,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Like it's a lot more dangerous in the black community because of that crabs in a bucket mentality that we have. There's
Mhm.
a lot of hate and anger, animosity, even in this chat. As I'm reading this chat, there's some Negroes in there saying some stuff, and I'm like,
But
all
to be
right,
fair,
that's
you do
cool.
got some fans in there. A lot of people do
I
agree
know.
with what you're saying too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of what I'm saying is really not all that controversial. If you
Mhm.
just, if people would just like think on it, like go maybe even go back and rewatch this live stream. I don't care, whatever, or take notes,
Mhm.
and then just contemplate and think: is anything I'm saying at all way off base? Like, oh my god, that's crazy that you would think for yourself. That's crazy that you can make your own life better. You know, the thing is this: we have to get to a place where we're living and letting live instead of trying to isolate or tread on someone else because of sins of the father from the past, whatever. We got to get to a place where it's just, we just coexist. We just get along. But when we continue to focus on things that divide us rather than things that unite us, we're going to have this world that we're in. And then we also can't make blanket statements. Like, I get that you've been to every continent and you've seen all this, but you're like, white people don't see us as equal. I'm like, how can you prove that? You said it'll never be like that. How can you be so sure? You don't know. Like, none of us knows. None of us has the answers. You could say right now, we'll think about how the people who said we'll never see a black president in our country. There are people back in the day who legitimately thought that, like, wait a minute, we were slaves, we were hanging from trees. There is
Mhm.
no way a black man will ever ascend to the highest rank in the world. That's never going to happen. Not in my lifetime. And look what happened. So you have to create the world that you want to see as opposed to have that lack mentality.
Mhm.
It's mentality, O'Shea. You can't have that lack mentality that it's never going to be this way and whites are always going to see us as less than. I'm like, I disagree with you because, first of all, it doesn't have anything to do with race. You can't say that white people feel a certain way and black people feel a certain way because you haven't met all white people, you haven't met all black people. Everybody has their own unique individual experience and view the world. Like how many of me are out there that just don't have a YouTube channel? There's a lot of people who think the way that I think. Maybe they're just not outspoken. Some of those people haven't even been born yet. There's a lot of people who have this mindset. There's a lot of people who judge people by the content of their character. I think someone said that before. Judge people by their content of their character, not their skin color. So if we do want to carry out MLK's vision, when does that start? When? When can we start talking about that instead of always, always, always drawing it back to race? And if we're going to continue drawing it back to race, what is the end game? Again, I would love to talk to one of the pro black liberals that want to shame me, that go off on me. What is your end game and how are you leading the charge? How are you going to get the whole black community on the same page to
Mhm.
create this ethno state that you just desire? And where's it going to happen at? And if you want to talk about how the white man has erased our history, and I'm like, okay, are you going to start speaking Swahili? Are you going to figure out what language you should be speaking?
Mhm.
Are you going to stop using white? Are you going to stop speaking English? Are you going to
Mhm.
stop spending money because it has slave owners on it? Like, what are you going to do and to what extent? And when does it start? Because we're still 13% of the population, despite living in the most advanced country to ever exist in the world. Black people are still 13% of the population. How is that possible? How is that possible? And we need to be talking about, if we're going to stick to specific black issues as opposed to like improving individual lives, we're going to talk about just issues facing the black community. It starts in the home. Even before that, it starts in the womb. We
Mhm.
can talk about a whole lot. We can go down an entire rabbit hole of what I think would really help to get the community to prosper. We can talk about public education.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about the welfare state. We could talk about how, I don't know, government dependency doesn't work. In fact, we should be united as citizens of this country first, more than ever before. Look what's going on at the border. Do you think that illegals coming into the country is going to just affect white people? Do you think it only affects white people, that a neighborhood could be filled with illegal aliens that don't speak English, have not assimilated, and they're disenfranchising everyone? So we really should be united as citizens of this country first before we divide on racial lines, because we have a common, I hate to say the word enemy, but we kind of do. The enemy is the state. The enemy of the people is the state. So
I mean, I think that's kind of sort of bullshit in a way, Mike, because number one, in the 60s, and Martin Luther King did a speech about this. They were giving white immigrants land and stuff like that, and wasn't giving black folks stuff. This country could have did its great due to African Americans before they brought these immigrants over here and did all this shit and moved them into black communities and all this stuff. Why this is like, okay, now we need to unite. I mean, this is the thing is, this is why there's a problem right now with Africans and black Americans and black Caribbeans in the United States, because we paved the way, and then who lets them into the country? That's not black people. That's Americans doing that. And then these Africans and other groups, they come over and shit on us. They come over and talk shit to us. So now we need to unite with those other Americans? Like, are you serious? Like, this is what I'm saying. I've been in Brazil, okay? I've been to all kind of places where black folks are. Wherever black people are at, they're at the bottom of the fucking society, no matter where you go. There's a reason for that. That's just not. Do you think black people just want to be at the bottom of society? Oh, we choose to be all niggas and to be at the bottom. Come on, bro. That's where it's at. The country never wanted blacks to succeed as a fucking group. Okay? The immigration, to be honest, what control do we have of that? Because really, all these other groups that benefited off of us, affirmative action, man, listen, black people were supposed to get a whole lot of stuff that white folks took from us. And now we're supposed to be like, oh, let's go there. And that's total bullshit, bro. And you know that. I think it's, maybe if you don't, it's disingenuous. Because let me finish. And the reason why I gotta say that is because what's going on at the border, that don't actually have shit to do with black people. Because they're gonna let those motherfuckers in regardless or not. Okay. Black people, we deserve our due in the United States because we helped build the country. If not, did all the work, fought in the most wars and all of that shit. And what they do is they bring those same people over, they play in our roles on movies and all that shit, and then they say, you niggas are lazy, y'all ain't shit. So that's what I'm saying. That's why you have the pro-black community, because they understand, hey, we don't really have a lot of stuff for ourselves. When we've had stuff for ourselves, people have tried to take it from us. That's why you have pro-blacks. I mean, pro-blacks are not just there for no reason. They're there because black people have been fucked over. That's why you have a pro-black community. You know, that's why it is.
Okay. Again, what is the end goal? What will pro-blacks do? Who's organizing it? Where do we meet? When do we meet? Where's the mothership so I can board it now? I want to get on it now. That's what I'm saying. It comes back to like white people. No. Hold on. Let me finish. Let me make this point. Okay. What is the plan? What is the grand master plan, and who's orchestrating it? Who's pulling the strings? Who's in control? And who gets to decide all of this? Why does it get decided for me? Why can't I decide what I want to do for myself and my life and my family? Because those are things I can control. I can't control what other people do. Okay. This is a majority white country still. So there's majority privilege in any country. And then also you say black people were never supposed to succeed. Okay. Then every single black person should be poor. Why does Oprah have money?
Let me say this. As a whole entire group,
we can talk about black doctors. We can talk about black Supreme Court justice. We could talk about blacks that have been successful. You're telling me, oh, those are just anomalies. Everyone else is designed for those. They just slipped through the cracks. They got lucky. How have I gotten lucky? I've found success in my life. I'm not exactly where I want to be, but I've definitely found success in this world. And I'm not going to let myself be limited by some boogeyman, this white supremacy, all this nonsense, because that is a poor use of my 15 minutes on planet Earth. So are these people just spending their entire lives on planet Earth complaining about racism? Because it is a complaint. It is a complaint because unless you have a plan to overcome racism, then what are you going to do? What are you really going to do? It just seems like all this talk at the end of the day, all this like, yeah, we should really be doing this and doing that, doing that. I'm like, all right, when does that plan go into effect? Because I mean, look around, look at some of these black cities where we're voting Democrat 90% of the way. Okay. It just seems like they're trying to create this monolith. Like, all right, if we just get every black person to think and do and act this way, we'll be better off. I just don't understand, man. What I feel like you're getting frustrated over there, man.
No. I'm not getting frustrated. I think that what you're saying is okay. I mean, obviously you don't really mean it. Okay, I want to get on this mothership and you don't. All right. So I think that's an ad hominem to, and an ad hominem is against the argument. So what you're saying is, oh, well, where is this? It's kind of shifting the goalpost a little bit and it is kind of disingenuous, but let's kind of talk about that. Okay. So what's the plan then? It's kind of like, what's the solution that what liberals make when you talk about, oh, you're voting for Trump. Oh, okay. Well, then what's the solution? Like liberals use the same argument. You're using the same argument, just on the other one. That's really against the argument. But we'll play that game. I think that what pro-blacks are looking for is not one complete leader. I think what pro-blacks are looking for in today's age is that they want to, at the very minimum, to have more autonomy over their own stuff, maybe more autonomy over their own businesses and kind of start there, you know, and like I said, and kind of work more with blacks to kind of create their own small businesses, create their own corporations, create their own things, and kind of create their more autonomy and get more power, whether it be politically or whether it be financially or stuff like that. There doesn't have to be one leader or there's a ship going to some place. I don't think that black people like that. Like just because you're pro-black, it doesn't mean that, oh, you want to go back to Africa or that you hate white people or anything like that. I don't think that that's what it means. I think that what black people want to do is to try to help other blacks not fail. It's try to give other blacks a solution to pull other black people into certain situations because they know that the society is not made for blacks to pull. We have black doctors, right? So pro-blacks will want more black doctors. We want to have black hospitals. We want to have things that we can export to the greater America and to the greater world. I think at the minimum, that's where we're starting. You know, we're trying to get more black women and black men together. These are just small things that start off like that. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, we're all hopping on the ship and it's happening on one big thing. No. And nothing works like that. Not even Blexit. If you look at Blexit, if I were to tell you what's Blexit about, well, if I said, what's the solution? Just go to the Democratic Party, just go to the Republican Party, just go Libertarian. You probably wouldn't answer it like that. You would answer it in certain steps, the same way I'm answering it for the pro-black community. It would be no different than what Blexit wants. Okay. You want your people to have more opportunities. You want your people to control their own stuff, their own media, to control their own businesses, to be able to, if they want to reach and do business in Africa, diaspora, and do things like that. These are the same things that other groups want. You know, it doesn't mean that you hate America or you hate white people or you hate anything. This is the same thing. So I think like you're shifting the goalposts a little bit, and that's kind of like an ad hominem, which I mean, I understand, but I mean, it's not really a good tactic.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, that was ad hominem. I can own up to something like that, but okay, I'm on board with that. I'm on board with owning your own business and having more control over your own personal life, and voting based on those values. But from what I'm seeing in the data, and I mean, do mean like voting data and like that kind of stuff, it's not happening. And then also what I'm hearing in the rhetoric is a lot of white people, white privilege. Look at the people who are the blacks that are on TV, right? Let's start there. Let's start with the blacks that are on TV. What are they saying? Why is that message, what you just said, how come that's not being broadcast on BET? Why are we not having a, let's say, younger version of like a Thomas Sowell, right? Someone who's, you get what I'm saying? Thomas Sowell's old, right? Let's get a younger Thomas Sowell to have a platform, be conservative, to talk these values and not be called an Uncle Tom and a coon and a sellout and all that, because that's what your pro-blacks are doing to blacks who are pushing like Brexit and stuff like that. Also, you talked about extending the olive branch out to like Africa, the diaspora and all that. Like, okay, what is stopping that from happening? Unless you're going to say that there's a boogeyman or there's some artificial barrier preventing people from starting their own business, I'm doing that. Anthony Brian Logan, I believe he has his own business. He had his own business before. He's doing a lot of the black conservatives that I've come across and met, and I'm sure black liberals too. Like I have friends that are liberal, that are black, and they do a lot of individual work and they have their own businesses. So what is stopping that? And then also, as far as interacting, I saw someone in the chat say like, I'm not uniting with white people ever. I'm like, okay, well, I guess you won't be starting your own business. And if you do, you're only going to get 13% at most, at the very most. If you're only going to interact with black people in America, that's not smart business. I get that you want to put money into the black community and lift people up, but in order to maximize your earnings, you need to be more open-minded. But see, people don't want to go there mentally. They don't want to go there mentally because they're stuck in that victimhood mindset, and there's animosity from the past, maybe some from the present, but it's like, again, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to do anything to improve your life? I'm talking about specifically whoever that was in the chat that said, I'm never going to unite with white people ever. I'm like, okay, well, what if there's a white person that wants to help you out? And I don't mean give you money, do some Turning Point USA thing. I mean like, hey, I got a friend over here that knows of an opportunity that you can take advantage of with your money and all of your resources. Why wouldn't you just network with that person? And we got to stop talking about it as black and white. Like there's not just black and white people here. There's Asians and Hispanics, obviously Hispanics a lot more now. There's other people here than just black and white. And so, and let me also clarify, when I say unite, we should unite as Americans, I don't mean kumbaya around the fire. I'm saying stop looking at who you think is your enemy, because not everybody that is white is against you. Not everybody that's black, not everybody is black is for you. For example, there's people in this chat right now that hate me more than any white person ever could. I guarantee that.
Well, let me say this. Now you make a good point. I think, Mike, the discussion is like with me, I'm more on the I'm more modern. I'm a shout out. I have a one of our big brothers of this group called the Black Manosphere. He dropped $200. I gotta shout him out. But I think the discussion is like in my corner of YouTube, like we were a echo chamber, you know. So it starts with having the discussions with people like yourself and people like Anthony Brian Logan and Brandon Tatum, who view Black America different. We're all the same people. You know what I mean? I'm going to do my best as an African American to look out for you. And then I'm going to bring people on who have a difference of opinion. It all starts with having a conversation like we're having right now. Yeah, we all view Black America differently, but we all should be trying to help and support one another. This is why I'm a Patreon to Brandon. He supports me. I'm a Patreon to Anthony Brian Logan. If you have a Patreon, I'll join yours. It's about helping each other because we're still Black at the end of the day. You know, I think a lot of times because we haven't helped each other, we do have that more of an individual mindset because you're like, oh, well, these niggas ain't gonna support me no way. So I understand why we feel like that, but I think a lot of Blacks got to be mature enough, just like I was today, to let you talk, you know, the majority of the conversation. We need to listen to each other and to be able to have these conversations because you had a lot to contribute to this conversation tonight. And a lot of it I had to agree with and concede a lot of those points. Now, there were a few things I disagree with, but at the same time, I think that you have a lot to contribute. And I think the root cause is that we as Black people, we don't support each other. So we don't give anybody a reason enough to want to even be loyal to us as a group, because we do just look out for ourselves. You know, the reason why I'm in medical school right now in Poland is because a white person looked out for me, Dr. Patrick Brown at UC Berkeley, and let me come into this program and got me here. And so it's because of a white person. White people have helped me out, right? I mean, I got educated at a white university, public university. But at the same time, you know, we do need to open up more doors for people. Let me just shoot this real quick. Super chat, guys. The thirst box starts in 8 minutes. Okay, 8 minutes. I do better with the KKK, the alt-right, and racist Southerners than than you. Okay, this boy, Dove. This boy, Dove, pushed off the pasture. I am tired of these type of motherfuckers. .org, time to clean house. So man, tomorrow with $200. Erica, Harvard has the most blacks ever, but most are Africans. It still goes back to economics. Get your economics up. I'm in Texas. They coming. I am keeping America great. It was already great. Trump ain't had anything to do with it. 1800s and 1960 affirmative action was for white people, poor white people. Curious, what makes him think about the first step? Xanathos clutch. Element are all the Negroes who kissed the ring only to bitch and moan 20 years later about blacks who actually practice self accountability. If you grad school, high school, hold it down, wait to marry to have kids, it's virtually impossible to be perceptually poor in America. Lisa Jeans, curiously, what makes you think about the first step? MLK, Hannibal is a hero. Thanks for all the support. Let me see. Mike, quickly, is there anything else, man? Because I have a premiere of my episode that's coming out. And guys, let me do this real quick. Mike, you gave a hell of a show. I know you're busy. You should come on more often.
Definitely, man. I would love to come on one of those Rumble shows because that's the thing, man. I'm not going to be bullied. I know people disagree. I know people will take shots. I welcome it, man. I feed off of that energy. So if people got stuff to say, cool. But the thing is, I also know that there's a silent majority in there that's agreeing with me. Like, hey, he's making some good points, you know.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I would love to come on that Rumble show because, you know, Anthony Brian Logan, he's somebody that he can really articulate a lot of what I just said so much better, and he's a lot more effective. He's been in politics a lot longer. But, I totally agree with you that dialogue is important. Diverse, no matter how off the rails I might sound on some stuff, it's still important to hear those ideas because then you have notes to compare in your own brain, and that helps stimulate your mind. You know, when I met Larry Elder back in October, he was talking about, take in new information every single day. Your brain is a muscle, and when it expands, it never shrinks back to its original size. So make sure you're always taking in new information, whether it's podcast, a book, an interaction you have. I'm grateful for YouTube because it allows for this kind of connection, this kind of interaction. And I definitely agree that I would love to see blacks interacting better and get past this hate that we have and this animosity because someone's not black enough for your liking, your taste. Get past all of that and just understand, like, maybe there's some I can learn from that dude. Maybe there's some I can teach him that makes him better. I think that is a great way. That's a good start point to kind of move forward. Not just as a community, not just as a black community, but like literally everybody. So you can drill down the black community, but literally everybody. But I appreciate you having me on, man. I wish we could, I could talk about this kind of stuff forever, but we're both busy and
yeah, just email me, bro. And like I said, you're doing it, man. Last time I interviewed you, 700 subscribers, over 11,000. Guys, do me a favor, subscribe to Mikenificent. Some people have already subscribed because they say they wanted a different opinion. So they like, you're a good YouTuber. I won't take anything away from you. But do me a favor though. Everybody go to the Thirst Box video. It's premiering in 5 minutes. I got exposed in her inbox, the Thirst Box episode 16. Those people who put hashtag shout me out Thirst Box, you did get your shout out. Shout out to MOT, all the people. So I'll see you premiering over there. And Azim said he subbed to you. And again, thanks to Mikenificent, I'm going right over there right now. It's premiering in 5 minutes, 4 minutes. The Thirst Box episode 16. Go over there right now. All of them. George is going to be over there. It's funny. Again, thanks again, Mike. I appreciate you coming over, bro.
Appreciate you, man.
Peace.